Kaizer Chiefs played a 1-all draw with Amazulu, and the two key moments of the game was the missed penalty by Claude Lilepo and Kainsamayo and scoring the goal of Pulemodi, which is crazy. But beyond these two things, there was a lot that was going on, specifically with how Chiefs were organized defensively and how they were organized offensively. We're going to start by the defensive side because it led to some high quality chances for Kaizer Chiefs. So if you look here, you see that early on in the press by Chiefs, you can clearly see that Chiefs are doing a man-to-man marking in the early stages of build-up for Amazulu, which would then force Amazulu to either go long or to be in a position where they lose the ball closer to their goal. But not only this, because if you look here, you will see that, let's say now Amazulu were able to bypass that first press, right, and kick the ball long. Who do you see? There's Dylan Solomons, who's very quick. There's also Pulemodi, who's very quick. In essence, they are playing these two guys as wing backs. Pulemodi playing as a left wing back, and then Dylan Solomons playing as a right wing back. So their pace is very good in recovering and coming into the shape. But on top of that, you also have the back three, which gives Kaizer Chiefs the security to go up and press because they know that there are people who are behind to cover them. But on top of that is the most important piece of the puzzle, which is Oxumteto. If you still have a back three, but you also have someone who's also going to protect that back three, then it's even better. So they have Umteto. So what you also see is that when Mteto wins the ball, who gets the ball right after the ball is won by him, it's obviously Nkosingphile Ngcobo, who can then launch the attack. And when they are launching the attack, remember, since they're aggressive in their press, that means there's always three players who have left up front to now receive the ball as they are attacking. So if we see how this actually looks in a match, you see here the very first chance that Chiefs got in this match. You have Pulemodi pressing the right back here, and a few seconds later, you see the ball has been won back, and there are two people ahead of him, and he can now choose one of them. But there's also Mtutuzi Shabalala who was helping in that press. And as a result, as this ball goes further forward, the ball is played to Lilepo, who then misses because the keeper came out and is saved. But this does not end here because another thing to check is this. There is obviously the security of having the back three, but Bradley Cross is playing hybrid left back, left center back at the same time. When he wins the ball, you see where the ball goes. It's won by Upulemod. It's won by the ball is won by the ball is won by Bradley Cross, plays it to Mteto, who then passes it on to Modi. And look what you have. Three players ahead, whereas Kaizer Chiefs are attacking, which is the pattern that we've been seeing. And now Amazulu have a problem now because it's basically a 4v3 in the situation. And actually, it's just a 4v2 if you look even further. And as a result, Kaizer Chiefs find themselves in this area. Tutuzi Shabalala scored this goal, beautiful. He could have laid it off to Modi if he wanted to. He could have played it back. He could have played it through for Ukain Samayo. So it just shows you that the way that they set up defensively is also helping them so that when they attack, they can have options up front. But this does not end there because in this other transition, again, you can clearly see Kaizer Chiefs have won the ball, and then now they are 3v3 against Amazulu. Then poor decision making here, and then it does not amount to anything. So Kaizer Chiefs did very well defensively, but what were some of their weaknesses? The weaknesses were that you are not subscribed to the channel yet, so please do make sure to subscribe if you haven't. Which brings us to the next thing, and it's Amazulu's only card that they could play, which is try and play the ball behind Solomons, because they did it against Frosler and it worked, but it did not work with Solomons because, he was very quick to recover. Until it did, because for the goal, you will see that the ball, Amazulu are attacking, it's lopsided. They're attacking more on the right-hand side of Kaizer Chiefs. And remember, on the right-hand side of Kaizer Chiefs, it's Solomon who's going up and down. On the left, there's Bradley Cross, but there's also Modi coming in to help. So in that way, they can try and overload that side. And when they get themselves in this situation, you can see that Solomons is there to help, but the cross is played and the ball somehow ricochets off Kunika. And also Miguel stands still here. He loses his man and it just pops up in front of him and then he scores. And then Amazulu lead in the game. But now let's go to the most interesting part, which is you subscribing and me showing you how Chiefs were playing in their offensive way. So offensively, Chiefs, you can clearly see from the get-go, it's that 3-5 that they like to play with him, Ulilepo, and Solomon's rotating. So one could be wide, like this case, Ulilepo is wide, and then Solomons is in the half space. Sometimes it's the other way around. And then Umtutuzi could be in the half space, Modi be wide, or they swap. It's not a rigid system. The only player that we know will definitely stay central is this one, the striker. So, yeah. So if you look then as the game progressed, you will then see something. You'll see that since someone is staying wide, in this case now, it's Mtutuzi Shabalala staying out wide, and the right wing back rather, stays tight with him. He tries to make sure that he doesn't play the ball, because if he plays the ball, then there's going to be problems. But in him doing that, then Pule Modi sees space that he can exploit between the right center back and the right wing back, which becomes a theme in this match. If you look a few moments later, you see that now Kaizer Chiefs are in the space that they've exploited from that side. But what's also nice for Chiefs in this case is that there are now a few number of Kaizer Chiefs players within the box of Amazulu. And this ball actually ends up being a shot, but it's not a goal. It's fine. And if you look again, one thing that you will see is that Chiefs were also trying to exploit the space between the lines, between the defensive line. Let me just show you. So this is their defensive line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is their defensive line. But look at where their midfield line, there is Amazulu. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there is this gap, there is this huge gap. Where's my thing now? There is this gap between the two lines. This gap. So this gap is where then Chiefs can then say, you know what, we're going to exploit that. And we'll talk about how this gap is created in the next few clips. So once again, you see this thing kept on happening over and over again, whereby the right wing back is pulled to the other side, and then Kaizer Chiefs can play the ball into that half space, and then they can try to get in behind. So once again, what you are going to see is that with this space now, with this space that is between the midfield line and the defensive line, Chiefs could have fun with it, because now they can drop a player like Solomons, like here, to be in that space and just be outside of zone 14, around zone 14. And what is happening now is that someone has to mark him, right? So now, because they see that Amazulu were very disciplined, they have a flat 5 that is sitting there, but someone must disrupt that. So Solomons is there, making a movement around the box. So that means someone has to follow him, right? And then if you look a few seconds later, you see Solomons has dragged his man out, and that has created space. And now you can combine with Lilepo, who can then run into that space and try to make things happen. But not only that, because now we find out why and how the space is created. It's mainly because of this guy, Unkosingphile Ngcobo here, but also Umduduzi Shabalala, since he's playing as an inside forward sometimes, or he can play as a second 10. He is basically, or the main 10 actually, he can have the license to drop and be in these spaces, which means Amazulu will have to deploy 1, 2, 3 players centrally and another one wide to make sure that Chiefs do not play centrally. And in them pushing up, and Kaizer Chiefs keeping their front line of Modi there, Kainsamayo here, Lilepo here, and Solomons joining in. This means now the defenders are pushed back, but the midfielders have to push forward. And this creates the space. And when the space is created, That means now Abolilepo Nabo, if they see that pinning the defense back is not working, now they have to drop and collect the ball in that space. And as they collect the ball in that space, they can run with the ball and take shots on goal. And in this game, we actually saw a lot of these shots by Kaizer Chiefs, which shows that they are actually, finding more space to operate in and shoot. Guys, please share this video, because I was doing this video. I'm like, it's actually I don't like blowing my own horn, but we spent, or I spent time preparing it. So please do make sure to share it with people. So Amazulu realized that Kaizer Chiefs were really pushing them and they were stretching them around. So they just went and set like this. And Kaizer Chiefs had to break them. How were they planning to break them? Well, one of the things is playing crosses into the box, which is why I think Flavio Silva should be a starter at Kaizer Chiefs. Genuinely. Because since teams have realized that Kaizer Chiefs, how you can try and beat them, hit them on the wide sides, right? And then Chiefs, they were like, okay, we're going to change and play a system of a back three. So now, Chiefs are playing a team that's sitting in a low block. And you can try and break them by stretching them and all of that. But also, if you're going to play crosses, you might as well just play a proper number 9 there. I still believe that Mayo is a forward but not a striker. I think he can play as a right winger. Take Lilepo, play him on the left wing. Let him compete with Tupule Modi. That's what I'm saying. Which brings us to this, by the way, this moment. This cross here, this cross by cross led to a penalty, which was not a penalty. I don't like talking about decisions by referees, but it wasn't a penalty because it literally hit a part of his body, then it hit his hand. So if that happens, if the ball hits another part of your body before it hits your hand, then it's not a penalty. But we move because Lilepo then missed a penalty. We're not going to dwell on that. But after that, we saw that the numbers advantage of Kaizer Chiefs, as much as Amazulu were sitting deep, Chiefs still exploited this thing of having numbers. How so? So if you look at this clip, you will see that at this moment, you have Keegan Allen thinking about Ngobo playing the ball to Modi, and then maybe if you stop Modi from playing the ball, then, he's not going to get the ball. But you also look at the right back, who's thinking about Mtutuzi Shabalala, who's well-disciplined and holding his width. But with this confusion and having a lot of numbers around the box of Mazulu, Ngobo can then just drive with the ball, and here, if he just hits the ball across, it's a goal. But it doesn't, and it's okay. Mistakes happen. Why does Silva drop? This is a question that people ask. If he drops, you see that he's pulling Keegan Allen with him, right? Which means the space in behind that has now been created because the defender has decided to engage with the striker. Now look what it does. He just bounces the ball back, and now he's attacking that space. And now Amazulu are defending, and there is a space that's vacated in their defense. Sereno could release the ball here, but it thinks otherwise. It doesn't. And you can see that the player is right there in that space. But then again, since Kaizer Chiefs have Upule Modi holding the width on the left, sometimes it's on the right where Lilep will be holding width, or Solomon's. Now he can move between the central space and the wide space and just drift around that half space and the central space, Because on the wide space, there's Upule Modi, as you can see him. He's right there. So the defender is thinking about, hey, I must mark Upule Modi. But in him thinking about that, then Silva can now get into that space. If Silva was here, Ufilis will be tight with Silva and he would know what to do with him. But since Silva drifted to the left, that means Phillies cannot be dragged all the way across now, because that means he will be leaving another man here in Tuba. So he kind of has to stay here. So Silva sees that and he takes advantage by moving around the space so that he can allow and create space for himself. And once that has happened, he can now attack that space and try to score. Unfortunately for him, just like the rest of Kaizer Chiefs were last night in that game, the keeper was just on song. But what did you guys think of that game? Do let me know down on the comment section below. And watch this video here that YouTube thinks you might like. Like the video, subscribe, and share with your friends. Bye bye.